Hey everybody, it's Michelle Glover with Batter and Bold Bakery. I hope that everyone had a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday. I know we did. It was a time to relax, reflect, to be with family and to be with friends. And so I'm hoping that everyone had a fantastic holiday. I'm actually doing today something that we as Southerners and we as people just do on a regular basis. I don't know about you guys, but this year we were the guest at someone else's home for Thanksgiving that was out of the state. So we traveled this year. And because we traveled, I did not cook anything at home. Normally what I do, if we're guests of another family's home that lives in the city with us, we'll go there, but I always prepare a smaller meal at the house that we can keep so that we're not taking a bunch of leftovers, or we can just eat it at our leisure in our own home. Well, this year, we didn't get that opportunity because we were out of town. So now it is Monday, the day after the day after the day after Thanksgiving. And I am doing just that today. I'm going to make a smaller Thanksgiving meal just for my family. It's only 3 of us that we can have here at the house. And one of the things that I saw a lot of back and forth and controversy on social media was cornbread dressing and the difference between stuffing and dressing and all of that. Well, in this house, in our family, we do make dressing. We make it from cornbread and we make it from scratch. So today what I'm going to show you is how we make a regular, smaller version of our cornbread dressing that we have for Thanksgiving. And I'll show you what it all looks like once we bake it. So to start, we've got to make our cornbread, right? And like I tell everybody, the best of your dressing is in your cornbread. That is the basis of what dressing is. But the better your cornbread bakes, the better the dressing overall will be. So we're going to start with making a regular helping of cornbread, and I've already preheated my oven to 400 degrees, and also I've already put in the oven my cast iron skillet with about 4 tablespoons of oil already in it. So that is already in the oven and it's preheating to 400 degrees. You can make cornbread in just about any type of casserole or any type of baking pan, but I tell people all of the time, nothing, absolutely nothing bakes like cast iron skillets or cast iron pans. I am absolutely in love with them. I have an enormous amount of cast iron that I buy on a regular basis. And my company, or the company that I love, is the Lodge Store. For those of you, if you ever get a chance to go there, the Lodge Store is in St. Pittsburgh, Tennessee. It is lodged between Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So I am from Memphis originally. I went to Tennessee State University in Nashville. So I go to Nashville all the time for games, for homecoming, to support our schools. And I also have family there. So while I'm traveling from Atlanta to Nashville, I always stop at the Lodge Store to just see what the latest and greatest is, and I always come out with something really good. So my recommendation for everyone is when you're baking cornbread, use cast iron. So right now, that cast iron skillet is in the oven with about 4 tablespoons of oil at 400 degrees, and it's heating up. So while that's doing its thing, we're gonna pull our cornbread together. So I'm gonna start with 1 cup of cornmeal, and you can use any cornmeal you like. You can use yellow cornmeal or white cornmeal. For me, I use white just because I just like it. So we're gonna do about 1 cup of self-rising cornmeal. So that's what we have here. So I'm going to toss that right into my bowl there. And then we're going to do 1/2 cup of self-rising flour. Again, you can use any flour that you like for this recipe. So I'm going to stick that in there. All right. That seemed to be the perfect helping. So there we go. So we're going to put these 2 dry ingredients together. And we're just going to try to mix that a little bit so those ingredients can be together. I use self-rising because it's just easier, and the ingredients are already in it to rise your cornbread the way you need. The next we're going to put in is 2 eggs. So I always crack my eggs into some type of cup or separate container because I don't want to get shells in my batter. So we have those there. I'm just going to stir them a little bit, scramble them a little bit, and we're going to pour them right into the middle of the batter. Okay. Lastly, we're going to use 1 1/4 cup of buttermilk. So that is about 10 ounces of buttermilk. You can use regular milk if you choose. I like buttermilk because it's very thick, it's rich, and it makes such a smooth cornbread. It just bakes so very well. So I'm going to mix these 3 things together and mix them in really good, and I'll show you what it looks like once all of the ingredients are mixed. Now, for this recipe, it can also call for about 2 tablespoons of sugar. If you are one of these people that likes to have sugar in your cornbread, feel free to add a couple of tablespoons of sugar to make it a little sweet. It does not make it terribly sweet. And that's an argument on social media as well. Should you put a lot of sugar, not a lot of sugar? For me and the Southern households that I grew up in, we did not use a lot of sugar in our cornbread. The thought on that is, if you want a cake, I'm sorry, if you want a cake, then just make a cake. You don't make your cornbread very sugary, but it's up to you what works for you and to your liking. But for cornbread dressing specifically, we do not put sugar at all in our cornbread mix because we don't want sweet dressing, right? With all of the things that have to go into the dressing, we don't want it sweet as well. So we don't put sugar in this recipe. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's just a pretty thick batter, kind of soupy, not over runny, but just enough to wet the dry ingredients. So there you have it. All right, so our ingredients are mixed really well. What we're going to do now is get our cast iron skillet out of the oven and pour some of the oil into our batter, mix it really good, and then put the batter into the skillet. So give me a few minutes. We're going to get couple of seconds actually. I'm going to get this cast iron out now. Now, my cast iron skillet has been in the oven for a while, so it's a little smoky here. But you want to make sure that it is hot. So I just poured it in there. I poured half of the oil from the pan into my batter. I'm just going to mix that. And it just kind of brings a little bit more sustenance to your batter. It brings flavor to your batter. And it brings that additional moisture that you're going to need. Now, I don't know if you all can see, but the cast iron skillet is here on a cooling rack right now. It is exceptionally hot. It's smoking. It has a little bit of smoke coming off of it, so be really, really careful. Cast iron gets really, really hot, but it bakes extremely well, and it bakes very evenly. So now that the oil has been mixed in properly, again, just back into the batter again, and making the batter smooth, soupy, and giving it the additional moisture it needs. So what I'm going to do now is pour this batter into the cast iron skillet, and you may hear a little bit of sizzle here. We're going to get all that batter as much as we can into the cast iron skillet. And then we're going to get this cast iron skillet back into the oven at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. I'm going to lift this up so you can see it. And it's sizzling a little bit. So we're going to get that in the oven for 25 minutes. And then we're going to pull it out and check it and see what it looks like. So let's get this in. Okay, everybody, we're back and it's been 25 minutes. So we're going to pull the cornbread out and take a look at it. Oh yeah, it's ready. It's ready. It's ready. Still sizzling. So again, I'm using just my everyday cornbread recipe. Can y'all see that? That is gorgeous. It is a really pretty brown. And that's after 25 minutes of being in the oven. As you can see, again, it's just a small recipe for cornbread that we're going to use today because it's just 3 of us that are going to enjoy it. So what I'm going to do, I had a little extra butter hanging around here. Let me see. We'll just do this. I have some melted butter here that I'm just going to drizzle over the bread. Get a spoon here. So we're just going to take that melted butter and kind of spread it. Y'all can see that over the cornbread and just kind of let that soak in. You can still hear it sizzling. I mean, that is really pretty. And that's all you need for your cornbread. We're going to let this sit and cool off for about an hour, and then we're going to start mixing together all of the other ingredients that we need in order to make this one-pan dressing. So again, that's our cornbread. It smells delicious. So we'll be back in an hour after this cools to mix everything together, and then we'll get our dressing in the oven to bake. Thanks. I'm back, and what we are continuing to work on today is our Southern Cornbread Dressing. So the last time we checked in, I had put the cornbread in the oven, baked it at 400 degrees for 25 minutes, and it came out a beautiful golden brown, and we were allowing it to cool off for an hour. So now that that hour has passed, while you were away, I crumbled up the cornbread by hand and put it into several crumbs like this. We also took 4 slices of regular white bread, toasted it, and mixed this in as well. So what we're going to do now is, hold on one second. What we're going to do now is mix those breads together. And so the reason why people ask, why do you also crumble toast with your cornbread as well, is because it's just another agent that helps to hold the dressing together. So I'm coming back now to show you guys, now that I've mixed it all together, it looks the same, but the toast just adds that extra, what I would call adhesive, to hold the bread together as you're cooking it. So what we're about to do now is start adding the ingredients to our dressing so that we can get it nice and smelling well and prepared to go into the oven. So while we were also going, I also took the liberty of chopping up onion, celery, and bell pepper. So this is a medium-sized onion. Again, this is just a regular cornbread in the skillet recipe for the average 4-person family. I'm making this dressing for 3 of us, so everything is pretty much on a smaller level. This is a medium-sized onion. So the first thing I'm going to do is add half of the onion to the mix. And if we need to, we'll adjust as we need to. If we need to add more, or if we need to take away. So it's easier though to add small portions at a time and adjust as needed. This is our celery. So with celery, I'm going to only use about 1/4 of the bag. This was an entire stalk of celery that you buy in the grocery store. I chopped up all of it. So we're only going to use a quarter of a bag of the celery. So we're going to get that in there. And the good thing about chopping up your vegetables like this is that you can put them in a Ziploc bag and you can freeze them and you can unthaw them and use them at a later date or as you see fit. This is a small bell pepper, green bell pepper. So I'm going to use just a very small amount, maybe 2 teaspoons of bell pepper. Bell pepper can be somewhat strong and it can be sweet as well. So you have to kind of use that sparingly. So we're going to start with that. So the first thing I'm going to do is start mixing all of those flavors together. I can smell it already. So what we're doing is mixing the celery, bell pepper, and onion all together in with the bread and spreading it and mixing it evenly. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add about a tablespoon of sage. So since I'm mixing with a tablespoon, we'll just use that. So we're going to start with a tablespoon of sage. All right, so we're going to mix that together. Oh, wow, it smells really, really good. Just like my grandmother's and my mother's. My mother was always the queen of making dressing in our household. So I take from her. Okay, that smells really good. The next thing we're going to do is add chicken broth. And we're going to start with 1 box because this is a smaller recipe. So the goal here when adding your chicken broth is you're adding enough to make it soupy, but not to overrun it. So right now, I've added about 3/4 cup of the chicken broth. And if you guys can see, it's a little soupy. It could take a little bit more. You got to remember that this is bread. So the chicken broth is going to be absorbed by the bread first. And then you'll start to see a soupy feel. So we're looking at it now. Take a look. It's kind of sitting in juice. If you guys can see that. So we're mixing it. Let me move this out the way. So we're mixing it. And you can kind of see the chicken broth sitting up. I'll move that in if you guys can see it. You can see that the juice is kind of sitting up there. That's what you want. Can you see? You want the juice to just be sitting slightly above your bread. It smells really, really good. So what I like to do during this time is to taste it. Before I add any other ingredients, I kind of like to get a sample of what it tastes like. So I'll know if I need to add any additional seasoning to it. So let's try that. So just a little bit, nothing deep. Let's see. Okay, has a really good taste, really good balance. Like it's really good. I'm really satisfied with it. But if you were not, to your own taste, of course, you would measure. So if you needed to add more sage, if you needed to add more onion, bell pepper, even chicken broth, feel free to do that. I personally would stay away from salt. Chicken broth has an enormous amount of salt in it unless you get the salt-free kind. But I would allow the flavoring from your chicken broth to resonate in your dressing and kind of season it that way before you add any large amounts of salt to it because it already has salt in it. But again, it's up to you. It's to your liking and what you would want to put in your dressing. A lot of people ask me all the time, should you or should you not put boiled eggs in your dressing? It is perfectly fine. I grew up on putting eggs in your dressing. My grandmother made it that way. It's perfectly fine. For today, I'm not going to put the egg in the dressing, not the boiled eggs. I am going to put raw eggs in it, and I'll do that in a second. But I'm not going to put boiled eggs in the dressing because everybody doesn't like it in my household. But what I do is boil the eggs and I put them in my giblet gravy. So I am going to make giblet gravy. I have a turkey breast that's in the oven right now that will generate a bunch of juice, right? I will take some of that juice, create a turkey gravy, and I will put boiled eggs in that. That way, people who want gravy and also want eggs, they can put it over their dressing. So however you want to do it with the egg thing is absolutely fine. Now, I am going to put 2 eggs in my dressing mix right now because eggs help to hold the casserole together while it's baking. I mean, it's really runny right now, right? So you kind of need something that will help it stick together, and that's what the scrambled eggs are going to do. So let me get 2 eggs, and we're going to crack those and put those in the dressing as well. And again, I've seen online the great debate, excuse me, of should you or should you not put boiled eggs in your dressing. Again, it's perfectly fine, whatever works for your household. Today we're gonna stick to the script and not add any, but I am gonna put 2 raw eggs, excuse me, in the dressing as an agent to help them stick together. And we're going to stir those eggs around and mix them into the dressing. Okay. And I can tell already, just by having those 2 eggs, it's already thickened my mixture. It's already done it. And you have to just make sure that those eggs are stirred in really good. Normally I would scramble them before I would put them in the dressing. But if you can mix them well in your dressing, then it's absolutely fine. So let me show you what it looks like. It thickened up my dressing just a little bit. And I can tell that it holds it together. Now I will just barely taste this just to make sure, excuse me, that my seasoning and what I want in the seasoning has not changed. There may be a case where we need to add a little more chicken broth or a little bit more sage. So I don't make it a habit to eat raw eggs, just my preference. But we are going to taste it just to make sure that adding those eggs did not change my seasoning. So I'm going to put just a dabble of more sage in the dressing, just a little, half a teaspoon. Mix that in. It smells really, really good. And that is primarily it. I'm going to let this sit. You may add just a little, there you go, the last bit of that chicken broth in there. Stir it up. Smells really good. I'm going to allow the seasonings to sit and marinate for about 30 minutes. Then we're going to pour it in a pan. We're going to bake it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, everybody, this is pre-oven. This is me mixing everything together and allowing the dressing to sit for 30 minutes. And as you can see, it's still raw. It needs to be cooked, but it's just enough to fill a medium-sized pan that is about 2 inches thick, just enough for a family of 3 or 4. So that's really it. That's your cornbread dressing. That's what it looks like. And we're waiting on the other pieces to get ready. We've got collard greens today. We have cabbage. We have a turkey breast in the oven. Giblet gravy is on the stove. So I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like and how easy it is to make Southern cornbread dressing. If you would like, please subscribe to our channel. It's Batter and Bowl Bakery TV, and I am Michelle Glover. Thank you.